Awesome. All right, you guys have the workbook. Okay, here's the thing. This is what I've come to grips with realizing. I became an entrepreneur a number of years ago. I exited corporate, but what I realized was I brought with me from corporate a pretty valuable practice. And that was, as a leader in corporate, we had to plan our business every year. As a leader, you were given a budget, and I would spend an entire week in a boardroom with my leaders and build a plan for the following year with KPIs, key performing indicators for everyone. I would have a financial plan, right? Somehow, I think that many folks enter the entrepreneurial world and like all of that just goes to the hell in a handbasket. People forget that it's a legitimate business that you need to do the same thing with, or you're just running a really expensive hobby, right? And I know the first year or two, like, let's be honest, it's about like every crumb is a meal. I'm trying to get this bad boy off the ground. I will set goals. I will set milestones of strategy, but I'm really just like on the journey to like make this thing happen. And I totally get that. I actually, for the first 2 years, didn't do a business plan because I quite frankly wasn't sure like whether it was even going to work or not, right? I was like, let me just give it 2 years and let me see if I can match my income. And then a couple years in, I was like, holy shit, there's people who work for me that are depending on the revenue in this company. It's not just me. And I need to be really responsible with the budget. And I need a plan and a roadmap, right? So that's kind of where I am today. And the reason I start there is because 2 years into my entrepreneurial world, I realized, I said to my husband, because he still works for a medium-sized business and they do their business planning. I looked at him and I said, you know what? Back in corporate, I would leave the house on an airplane and go somewhere to do strategic planning for a week. And I think that's a big thing that's missing with what I'm doing in my own business today. I am not removing myself from the day-to-day, and I'm not protecting and creating time over a week to like strategically plan for the year, even if it's just me. How many of you, it's just you? Okay, this was me just a couple of years ago. It was just me. And I looked at my husband and I said, I need to leave. I need to check out and check in somewhere else for a couple of days. And me and me and me at the table, that's it, are going to build a strategic business plan, right? Like I need to do this for myself. And it was one of the most life-changing experiences. And that's where my business went from 300,000 to 600,000 the next year. And then from 600,000 to 1 million, and then from 1 million to 3.4. And we've grown another 30% this year. So we've grown year over year over year, right? And this is just with a company that's hitting the 6-year mark, right? And so I realized some of you guys follow me over on social, and I just came home from my own business planning retreat, set my goals for the year. Mandy, who leads up our programs concierge program, our programs concierge manager, was on my leadership call this morning where I reviewed with them my business plan, the financials, literally down to the damn dollar where it was all coming from this year based off of our 3 profitable pursuits, what we're going after this coming year. And everyone in the entire company knows exactly where they're contributing in their roles to those 3 profitable pursuits, right? And all of this to say, I've come to the realization that not all entrepreneurs come from a decade plus of a Fortune 500 who have the luxury of have been trained on business planning and managing a budget and creating key performing indicators for people on your team. And it just dawned on me a couple of weeks ago. I was like, you know, I'm just going to like, this is my gift in November to my community, to the people who are on my email list. I want to run a workshop with them because I realize that some of you are highly gifted in your gifts. You're highly gifted in service. You're highly gifted in coming up with, you know, your product or service, but you have no experience in business, right? Like you've gotten some momentum in your business because you have found a gap and a need in the economy and you're driving a business, but maybe for how many for the first time ever? Like maybe you went from an idea to like generating revenue to like hiring one contractor to maybe another contractor part-time. And before you know it, you've got a little bit of duct tape and you've got like, all of a sudden you got kind of this like small company running, right? And it's like, holy cow, how do I lead and strategize? So all of that to say, this format I'm going to share with you guys tonight, I have been using and refining for the past 6 years. My goal tonight is I want to walk you through my business planning retreat strategy. And there's a downloadable document that I want all of you to take, keep on your computer. And in a perfect world, you would do this over a 3-day period, totally isolated by yourself somewhere with no distractions. Okay. You can do this at home, but I'm telling you, and I work from home, right? There's something about getting in the zone and allowing the creativity to just go, right? Like I put myself in a cabin a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, I had like 14-hour days and they didn't feel stressful at all. It was me in my pajamas and these huge flip charts just on energy of vision and excitement and like moving from one flip chart to the next and just mapping it out, with breaks in between, like hikes and walks and movement and all those things. But when you're in the day-to-day and you're at home, you're going to be distracted. So you can take this document, you can do it at home, but you're going to need more than 3 to 4 days. I promise you that. The dishes are going to call, the kids are going to call, the contractors are going to call, the laundry is going to call you. You are going to be distracted, right? So you're going to want to take more than 3 days. But if you take this template and you go out on a retreat on your own, I promise you can get it done in 3 days. And Mandy will attest to this. My team, I think they probably are terrified of me going on retreats because the amount of actions that come out of me during those 3 days is insane. And the questions, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do tonight, my whole purpose is to walk you through a 3-day business planning strategy, foolproof. Some of you, there's going to be things that you can fill in all the way. Some of you, it's going to be your first year and you're going to be like, I don't even know where to start with this. Awesome. Use this as your blueprint to fill in as you're getting started. Come back to it each year, right? How many of you guys have read the book Traction?
That will finally be.
Yeah? No? Okay. If you haven't, buy it today. Okay. It will change your life. I bought the book Traction 6 years ago. And one of the things it challenges you to do, and one of the first chapters is to like build out your org chart. And it was like me and 2 people. And by like the 3rd or 4th page of team planning, it shows this like massive chart. And I laughed. Like I was like, whoa, whatever. Right. Okay. 6 years later, I'm back to the book and I'm like refreshing the team, and it's blowing my mind how much the company has grown and how many people work for us. Right. But if you build a really strong foundation, it makes a huge difference. Okay. All right. So let me pull up the chat. I've just been rambling like crazy. Can you guys tell I'm fired up? Like I had so much energy working on my business plan. I had so much fun. So I'm excited to share it with you guys. Okay. Okay. So Mandy shared with you the document. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm just going to explain to you how I go through these 3 days. Okay. You take notes. And then it's going to be up to you to go spend this time working on the document yourself. I'm just going to give you some application of how I use it. Okay. The first thing I will say is there's pre-work. I learned this early on. I give you pre-work before you start your retreat so that for those of you with children and busy lives, you don't spend that precious retreat retrieving data that you could have gotten before you got to your retreat. Okay. I learned that the hard way. The first year I went on my retreat, I was reaching out to my CFO. I was trying to get all my numbers, all my data. And I realized in hindsight, gosh, if I had done this part beforehand, when I got to my actual retreat, I could dive into the meat. Okay. For those of you who are like organizational freaks like I am. Okay. So this is what I encourage you to do with pre-work. First of all, do a post-mortem before you ever even go on your retreat. What do I mean by that? Look at your year and ask yourself what worked well and what do you need to improve, right? What worked well? What do you need to improve, right? So like for our company, we drove profit, or not profit, we drove revenue. We grew, but we actually cut into our margin. So it was like, well, we made more money, but I didn't make any more money, right? So that's a problem, right? So like, look at your business and ask yourself, like, what worked well? What do you need to improve on? The other thing is revisit your why. How many of you have been in business for more than a year? Okay. Yeah. So every year your why is going to evolve. And some of us lose our luster and motivation because you actually obtain your initial whys in business and then you get lost because then you are like, why am I doing this? Right? You start to lose purpose. So like when I first got started, my goal was just to match my corporate income. Well, then I did. Right? So then what drove me to the multi-million-dollar a year business? Right? I had to go back to the drinking well and ask myself, okay, well, why am I doing it this year? So some of you met your goals this year and you need to revisit with new goals. This past year was about funding for investment in this new luxury Airbnb, right? So there, you have to revisit. You have to revisit. And then I highly recommend, again, this is a great pre-read. The first couple of chapters is Traction and looking at your mission and your core values. Okay. I wrote my core values 5 years ago, and it was wild going back and looking at them and how much we've evolved as a company and how much I've evolved as a CEO and how I want to establish culture in my company. Right. And so if you can come to your business retreat, which Bill, it's just your arbitrary retreat that you schedule for yourself, right? If you come with core values and a mission statement, that makes a huge difference. And you can even go a whole nother level to build your 10-year and 3-year plan. Big picture, not like details, big picture. If you can go into your retreat with a vision of where you want to be in 10 years, by the time you sit down at your business retreat, you already have the long game in mind. You have your core values to inform all the decisions you make, and you have your why. Is this making sense? Yeah? Okay. Now, the other thing I highly encourage is that you bring your P&L. Bring your P&L for the year. I wasn't done with my year when I went, but I could project it. I hope most of you can project your final revenue for the year by November, right? So bring your numbers to date and bring your numbers from the previous year. How do I know we've grown 30% since last year? I literally have my numbers compared in QuickBooks from last year to this year up until November 1st. So when I went on my retreat, I could literally see apples to apples where we were revenue-wise last year versus this year and how we're pacing, right? Does that make sense? And then the last thing I want you to do pre-work wise is have your revenue broken down by offer for those of you that sell more than one thing. Okay. Have your revenue broken down by offer so that you know going into your business retreat how much money you made with each individual offer. Does that make sense? Now, again, why am I telling you to do this all ahead of time? Because these are energy draining administrative things. Well, some of them are that you can do before you ever come to your retreat. I want the magic to happen at the retreat. I want all of these documents to be at your fingertips for analysis whenever you get to your retreat, right? Don't spend your first day trying to dig for all that. Okay. So the last thing I will say is build your theme for the year. Okay. Some of you need to decide next year. Is my girlfriend and I, some of you know Miriam. She's one of my best friends. She's going to close out over 5 million in revenue this year. And we were just chatting about this. Like, does she go for 10 million next year or does she not? And we were talking about base camp years versus recovery years and growth years, right? Every year doesn't have to be this wild, aggressive growth year. Some of you are in seasons where maybe it's the last year you have a child home before college, or, you know, fill in the blank. Maybe you got your ass kicked with hyper growth this year and you're just trying to recalibrate, right? Hyper growth creates mass disruption. Some of you are in a place where you are like, let's fucking go. Next year is going to be super aggressive and my nervous system is ready for it. I'm mentally ready for it. And I'm going to clear my calendar for it, right? But what I'm trying to say is that you know in your soul what you need to pursue next year, right? And what is in alignment with your life and your goals, right? And make sure it feels good, right? Because there can be years where you're like, I know I could go for 10 million. I could, but like emotionally, physically, energetically, maybe it's not a place you want to go next year, and that's okay, right? So you need a reality check there before you go on your business retreat. So, I like to say, are you in a base camp year, a ramp up year, or a regroup and recover year, right? My next year is, I'm not worried about achieving more than about 10% growth next year. I've experienced enough growth for a number of years. I actually am just looking at fine tuning and optimizing what we're doing. And I'm really excited about it. Right. So you decide. Okay. So my goal for next year is to reduce waste, increase profitability, and stay stable. Right. What's yours? Right. These are things you can think about. Okay. So let's get into day one, bringing all of that with you. Okay. Day one, we're going to bring all of this with you. Day one is about, first and foremost, prioritizing your life. Okay. We have to remember why we got into business for ourselves. Okay. Some of you, if you're honest, are maybe a little bit burnt out right now. Okay. Some of you are working, you've traded your 9 to 5 for a 5 to 9. And it started out fun and exciting. And now you're really exhausted. And you say that you've gone for this for freedom, and you keep telling your friends, I'll do that girls trip next year. I'll make time for my friends to play racquetball or whatever it's called now. What's that game, that pickleball? But it's not happening. You're not showing up for the fun things in life because your business has literally taken over your calendar. Anybody in that space right now? Even a bit of regret that you're not even available for your family the way you want to be, right? This was my biggest, not regret, but learning in the first couple of years of being an online business owner, was that I didn't know how to manage my calendar, and I ended up, it took over everything, and I started to get burnt out. And I'm here to tell you, your business isn't burning you out. You've just lost the power in prioritizing joy first. Okay. So hear me now, that before the year starts and you start your business plans for next year, prioritize joy first. Okay. So some of you guys are going to think this is wild, but I do this before I do anything else in my business planning. Right. Okay. So we're going to get into that in a second, but what you're going to do is, in your worksheet, what I really do is I start with revisiting that why that we talked about. You've already brainstormed it before you went on your retreat, why you're in business as a business owner this year. And then this is where we're going to talk about dreaming. Okay. This is the opportunity for a dream budget and a dream calendar. These are the first two things you're going to do before you start your business strategy. Okay. So before we get into the dream budget, this is why we pulled our P&L. You need to know, how much are you financially responsible for contributing to your family household? Right? What's the pressure on you right now at home with your business? What's that number? Right? And then number two is, what is it currently costing you to run your business? So it's two numbers. What are the operating expenses at home that you're responsible for? What are the operating expenses in your business? Okay. Now, so you should know the threshold, that a minimum that you have to meet next year, right? Now, what I want you to do after that is, now we're going to go to the why. This is where we expand the budgets, right? So if we have our current operating expenses at home, we have our current business operating budget, and we want to go back to our why. Some of you, your why has a financial tie, does it not? So for some of you, it may be putting your kids into college. For some of you, it may be doing another investment. Some of you, it may be renovating your home. What is stretching you to make more money next year? Maybe it's paying off debt, right? Mm-hmm. It could be one of many things. What is the revenue that's feeding that why to your business and your household budget? And this is where you start to go to the dream budget, right? So, for me, for example, this past year, I had specific revenue goals wrapped around the hundreds of thousands of dollars needed to invest in the mountain property I was building. I knew down to the dollar what I needed to earn on top of my household commitment and the company budget, my dream budget. Over top of that, what did I need to make to fund the why? Is this making sense? Okay. This is going to drive you all year long. Okay. We're going to get into this in a minute. But if you know down to the dollar, the gap that you need to achieve, and then we can reverse engineer your business plan down to the dollar, how it's going to fund it. Now, all of a sudden, it's not a dream. It's not a vision board. It's not a hope. It's not a wish. It's down to the damn dollar, exactly how you're going to achieve it. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So we have our current budget, and then we're going to match that against our dream budget. If you've got your current revenue and you want to invest $40,000 in a kitchen renovation, add that to the dream budget and revenue for the business. Add the 40,000 on top, right? Is this making sense? So we're just dreaming right now. Okay. Now, the second dream that we're going to dream up, because remember, hopefully it's a clean slate next year with your calendar, right? Sure. Maybe your calendar kicked your ass this year because you let it just take you over. It's time to take control, right? Excited. So what do you desire more of this coming year in your calendar that you didn't have control of this year? This is your chance to rewrite boundaries, to create change. Okay. So for me, boundaries, no calls on Fridays ever. That's a boundary for me for next year, right? There's a million things I can use it for. I could go into a rabbit hole on that, but that's a boundary, right? What are some things you can look at post-mortem with your calendar and ask yourself, what could I do differently? One of the things I noticed this year, I tried to cram everything into Mondays as far as CEO, like team calls, but then also like our big client calls, which we call strategic advisory, where I'm addressing the whole community and I'm hot seating. What I found this year was that by the time my Monday was done, I had like 150 emails in my inbox because I haven't been in it all day because I've been coaching all day. I'm wiped and I like haven't eaten, right? And I'm like, I thought I was being efficient cramming this all in on this day, but the lifestyle of it sucks. And the anxiety of it being done with a day and being so far behind in my inbox before I hit Tuesday doesn't feel good. So I rewrote my calendar. Next year, there's no client calls on Mondays at all, right? I've been very strategic in my calendar and said client calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays only. Okay. And for me, so that I can recover and recharge, I am actually doing my creative days on Wednesdays. So I can go hard all day on Tuesday with coaching and know that I have a reprieve on Wednesday where I don't have to put my hair or makeup on. I'm in my pajamas and I am like creating content. I'm writing, I'm creating, but I'm not actively coaching on screen. And for me, it gives me the energy I need to get back to Thursday and be on screen coaching again, right? Your cadence can look however you want, but you need to think about owning your calendar. Okay. Now, let's see. So the next thing, so in your worksheet, I talk about big rocks and little rocks. Okay. I want you to start your calendar with your big rocks. So we've talked about your dream schedule. We've talked about your dream budget. Now, the next thing you're going to do, and this is something I have been doing since the first year entrepreneurship kicked my ass, and I realized that my kids were annoying me. It was annoying me that they didn't have school and I didn't plan for it. And they were in my house. Anybody been there before? I was annoyed as shit that my husband got to walk out the door, go to work, and somehow just landed on me to juggle all these kids and try to work at the same time. I'm frustrated. They're frustrated. And then I was like, finally I had to look in the mirror and say, wait a minute, why did I get into this? I got into this business because I wanted the time freedom and to own my calendar, yet somehow I haven't owned my calendar. And my kids are being shushed and pushed out the door. and ignored on a day that they're out of school. It's my fault, right? So I was like, not a mas. So on my business planning retreat this past week, and I encourage you to do this, plan your big rocks first. I actually have all of my children's days off in my calendar so that I'm not overbooking myself. They have half days. If you look at my calendar on half days, I don't have calls in the afternoon.
That's good.
I'm here to receive them and exercise the right of the flexibility of being an entrepreneur. That will fill your cup back up and keep you from being frustrated with your business because you took the reins, right? Vacations, birthdays. Y'all are going to think I'm crazy. My kids' birthday parties are scheduled a year out, conveniently when it makes the best sense, right? So for instance, my son's birthday is this Saturday. It's the day, it's like the 30th. It's right after Thanksgiving. We've learned it's like the worst time to have a birthday party. A, all of his friends come home sick from visiting families. B, it's like squishing so much between the holidays, right? And so I have learned to strategically plan his birthday before Thanksgiving, and I plan it a year in advance, right? You can do this too. And then you don't screw it up with your family when you're like booked over somebody's birthday because you didn't think about it, right? Plan the big rocks first. Vacations. Even if you're not buying the plane ticket yet, this is going to motivate you. How many of you guys have heard my Bali story? I planned to go to Bali a year before I went, and it was a 10-day trip. And I blocked my calendar for 10 days. But I told myself the company had to hit a certain amount of revenue before I'd actually book the trip. But here's the thing. If you don't create the space for the miracle will never happen, right? But what I saw on my calendar month over month was this big void in August of this protected time. Just because you own your calendar and say you're going to go on vacation doesn't mean you have to go spend a ton of money and book the trips yet. It just means you need to create the space for it, right? 8 days before the Bali trip was supposed to happen, I pulled the trigger on a first class flight all the way there and back, right? Because I had earned the right to do it and I created the space to manifest it, right? This year I went to Ireland. My husband and I planned the trip 8 or 9 months before we ever went. We booked the tickets about 4 weeks before we went. I'm here to tell you, my husband and I never would have been able to coordinate our schedules 4 weeks beforehand to make a trip like that happen. So we put the big rocks in first, called it in, and then when the time was right, give yourself revenue goals. When you hit it, reward yourself, book the damn trip. You made the space for it, right? Is that making sense? Okay. So that's number 2. Those are the big rocks. The other big rocks that many of you forget about, and this is not overrated, it's self-care. And when I say self-care, it could mean anything from mental to physical. But it is when the CEO is in adrenal crisis, this is good for no one, right? So for some of you, it looks like, for me, it's a deep tissue massage every Wednesday at 3:30. I'm not sorry about it when my team's still working and I'm getting a massage, right? It may be pickleball with your friends. It may be golf, but what are you committing to for your social and mental and physical well-being and making it a priority? Because we have to train like athletes as CEOs, right? Because when you're sick, it's not good for business, right? So what are you doing to schedule that in? I literally called the chiropractor's office from my business retreat, got someone on the line, and booked every single adjustment and massage for the next year while I was on the phone with her, right? In the calendar, right? So what are you doing to create the big rocks? Okay. All right. Once the big rocks are done, we're going to go into the business priorities. Okay. Big rocks set aside. We're going to come back and build our business around the big rocks with our little rocks and sand. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Okay. So what I want you to do with your business analysis is you're going to look at your previous year, right? And I want you to, like this year, 2024, look at your revenue, what you made with each individual offer. And then what I want you to do is you create a T-chart, right? And then on the other side, it's your 2025. Up above, you want to write what the total revenue goal is, which should be potentially higher than what it was this year. Okay. And then what you do is you take a step back and you look at that, and you have to see what the revenue gap is, right? So if it's, 300,000 this year, and to meet your dream budget, you need to make another 200 next year. Now you have a $200,000 gap between 300 and 500, right? And you take a step back, you look at all your offers from this year, and you have to ask yourself, this is the gut check. Before you move forward with your strategic plan, sometimes there needs to be a death of an offer, or there needs to be a birth of a new one. Anybody been there? Okay. So, I always tell the story, the year we went from 1 million to 3.8 million, we actually killed an offer, right? The year we did 1 million, I stood back and looked at all of our offers. Okay. And out of that 1 million, 200,000 of it came from one particular offer, which was our LinkedIn agency. Some of you have an offer that when you step back and you look at it, it's nauseating. Some of you step back and you look at something you've worked on this year and it's been life-sucking, soul-sucking. You have not enjoyed it. I know. I see Joanne. I see her. Okay.
Amen.
When I stood back and I looked at it, the one thing I looked at that just made me feel nauseating to think about was that damn agency, right? So before you move forward with gusto with your business plan, gut check what you've done this year. Energetically, is it aligned? And then also you have to think about how much time did I spend on it and what was the return on it, right? And was it worth it, right? Some of us need to pull up our big girl panties and do something that's very revenue generating right now, whether we love it or not, because we need to be good stewards of the company's money, make sure we're not cutting off our nose to spite our face. But there is a tipping point where you're working on something that is energy sucking and soul sucking. When we pulled the agency off, it gave us capacity to be better at the other things we do, and our business grew exponentially. So I want you thinking about this when you're looking at your business plan, and ask yourself, when you look at this past year, is there anything that either time or energy, if it took a lot of time and didn't have a huge ROI, or it took a lot of my energy and it didn't give me joy, do I need to rethink it? Okay. Before you move to the next year. Now, after you've done that quality check, the next thing you have to ask yourself is there anything new on the horizon? Share with me in the chat. Does anybody have anything new they're excited to launch next year? And that's where the fun projecting happens, of building that business plan around it, right? And is that going to be the thing that fills the gap? Let's say if we go back to that business plan, if you want to go to 300 to 500, is that going to be your gap? Is the new offer going to be the gap, right? Or there's a million ways to Sunday to close the gap for that extra 200,000, right? You can sell more of the offers you have today. You can raise the price of the offers you have today, right? Is this making sense? So the key is to step back from this year, address what you want to move forward with from last year, what you want to kill, give a death to, what do you want to birth? And then over to the right, you're going to start mapping out how much each offer needs to bring in revenue to close that $200,000 gap. So I'm just going on these numbers because we've been playing with them. Is this making sense?
Hi, Melissa, it's Doreen. Can I ask a
Doreen,
quick question?
no, honey, we're going to hold questions till the very end, if you don't mind. I want to get through the whole workshop so that we don't lose track, and then we can come back for questions. Okay.
Okay.
We'll get you at the end. Okay. Okay. So we've looked at the past, we're looking at the new offers, and then we want to reverse engineer those goals. Now, again, this can look a million different ways. I'm going to give you a couple of ideas. And for all of you, it's going to be up to you and your own individual businesses, how you close the gap in the growth of your revenue goals. Okay. So again, for instance, let's say we wanted to not change the price of the Lead Gen Academy, which is currently $5,500. But let's say we wanted it to generate more revenue for the company this coming year. Maybe our goal goes from 4 million in revenue to 5 million in revenue. Well, we need another million. So if we don't want to raise the price, what do we need to do? I need to sell more, right? So you have to come up with a strategic business plan around that. Either I do another launch or we start selling in between launches, right? But there has to be a closing the gap in that number. It's simple math. Or you go back to the drawing board and you say, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. I think I'd rather just raise the price, right? You get to decide when you start playing with the equation, right? We're increasing revenue by 300,000 next year by raising the price of our mastermind. Our mastermind right now is $30,000. I have a capacity on the number of clients we'll take. I'll never take more than that because it kills the intimacy of the room. But I can raise the price of it to 40,000, right? When I do that and I sell the same number of seats next year, I just brought in 300,000 more in revenue for the company, right? So you get to choose where those numbers come in, whether you want to increase number of sales, increase the number of conversions, if you want to raise your price, maybe a little bit of both, right? Okay. The other place that you could look at creating more revenue is, what is your client retention process? Are you keeping your clients? Are you ascending them? Are you chasing after new clients every month? Right? So there's different ways to create more revenue in your company. Okay. So the bottom line is, before I get to the next step in the business plan, is we want to assess our offers from the previous year, commit to what we're going to move forward with, kill what we're not going to move forward with, come up with a birthing plan of anything new. Okay. And then we need to look at our new revenue goal and find the gaps in our offers and how we're going to meet it. Right. So I'm just going to share with you arbitrarily, if our goal next year is 5 million in revenue, and we want to do 1 million from a mastermind and 4 million from the Lead Gen Academy, right? I'm just giving you some easy math, right? Then you have to reverse engineer from there. Okay, well, how many sales do I need in each one of those to hit those numbers? How frequently do I need to sell it? What do I need to price it at, right? So we're just working backwards, okay? Okay, so that is the foundation of literally building it. Then it gets really exciting. Mandy, I don't know that you've ever heard this story, but I remember 2 years ago, I was sitting at the beach and I'd run all the numbers. And this was, we'd done $1 million the year before, and I ran all the numbers based off our launches and the price of our programs. And I was like, I think we can do 3 million next year. And I remember my husband looking at me and being like, what? Like, he looked at me like I had 3 heads. And it was so cool to so confidently be able to just hold the paper up with the math and be like, no, I mean, I'm fucking serious. Like, the math works out. Like, as long as we do this, we can hit these numbers. And by golly, we did. And it feels so good to know where you're headed and have a plan and track it and be like, we are on our way. I actually confidently know how I'm hitting this, instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to make $1 million this year. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but it's going to happen. I'm just going to cross my fingers and pray to God it all comes in, right? That plan will help you sleep really well at night and get your spouse on board, right? Because he was like, wow, okay, you know, and he saw it happen. Okay, so let's get into the how. So design your business plan for the year to meet your goals. So these are the 3 categories I want to talk about next that are really important with your business planning, okay? There's 3 areas. There's build, your top of funnel strategies for the year. Okay, top of funnel. We don't have leads, we don't have sales. And then there's grow. So this is your customer journey to conversion. So once you have them in the top of funnel, how are you converting them to a sale? So you need to do this with every single one of your offers. You need a very strategic plan. And the third category, and we're going to talk through these, is the scale. How do you scale that offer, right? How do you optimize the offer? Client retention, client ascension, right? And these are the 3 most important business plan actions that you need to wrap around each offer to have a clear plan and strategy in place to hit your numbers. So let's start with build, right? So build is your top of funnel strategies. Where are your leads coming from? Where are the eyeballs? Where is your quote unquote traffic coming in to see your offers, right? So for instance, with us, each offer is very different. Our traffic is very different for every offer. Okay. So for instance, with the Lead Gen Academy, it is very much a strategic split between organic traffic on my social channels, podcasts, and email marketing and ads, paid ads. I have a specific strategic plan with what I pay for ads, with a very specific calculated goal of number of registrations from that and the typical conversion rate I get from ads, right? Same thing with organic lead generation. We know that the average conversion rate of an organic lead upon registering for a masterclass for Lead Gen Academy. Now, again, top of funnel strategy. Our strategy for all the eyeballs for that funnel are very different than our other offers. And how we calculate how we get to that math is very different than our other offers. The customer journey to purchase is very different than our other offers, right? So let's just walk through Lead Gen Academy with build, grow, and then scale. And then we'll go back to some other things that we sell to help you guys think about how you're doing this, okay? So with the Lead Gen Academy, our top of funnel is very much a hybrid of organic leads across socials and email, podcast, and ads. But the customer journey to conversion up until this year has always been the same. Some of you have participated in it. Anybody been in my Lead Gen Academy masterclass? Okay. That is one conversion strategy. Herd them all into one room for 9 days, give them a deadline, and slam the door shut, right? So you're herding all the traffic, all of it, right? And then boom, done. See you in a couple months. Close the doors, off we go. That is one type of conversion strategy. One, right? Totally different. Now, then let's talk about ascension, right? Those clients then have the opportunity to ascend and like move up the ladder into our higher level business coaching from that base level. We have a strategic plan, mentorship, concierge inside to keep track of them, communicate with them, support them, track them along their progression. And then when the time is right, introduce them to our higher level offers. Do you have that structure in your company? Right? Or are you letting them fall off and going to find new clients? Okay. So that's one. Let me share with you another one. So build, grow, scale. Build, grow, scale is a completely different beast. We don't run ads for it. And it is very much organic and internal. And so what I mean by that is it's an organic invitation that we have where we invite people in to our mini mastermind. It's a business mastermind. It's 6 months long. Where we teach people how to build and grow and scale their business online. But we also have a very methodical and strategic plan inside of our company to invite our graduating cohorts in the academy into that program, right? So we're not running ads for that, right? We're not running launches for that. So what I want to underscore is the customer journey to convert to purchase looks very different. So for you all, your offers, the customer journey to conversion can look very different. We've had an evergreen little micro offer that's just run 24 hours before, 365 days a year, right? For a couple $100 that just literally runs evergreen with ads. Anybody doing that? You've just got something running on ads. It's like a short webinar people clip into, right? Some of you are selling every single day your services in the DMs. Right? The third example I'll give you top of funnel is for us is our mastermind. Okay. Totally different, again, conversion strategy. It only opens its doors once a year. Exactly. Once a year. So you can imagine my business plan for the sales of my mastermind look vastly different than my business plan for something that I'm selling through launches or through a daily, weekly strategy. Right? Is this making sense? So and it's high ticket, it's $30,000 once a year. So our sales strategy for it is a short lifespan and then it's done and the doors are shut. Right? And that starts with selling it from a stage. Anybody sell things live from a stage? So again, totally different sales strategy all together. Customer journey to conversion, completely different. So what I want you thinking about with all of your individual offers is where am I getting where are the eyeballs coming from for my offer? Is it through what is your top of funnel strategy? Are you building an email list and nurturing them? Is it podcast? Is it social media? Is it launch style webinars? Is it live speaking engagements? But you need a top of funnel. right? And then who's responsible? This is the big one. Write this down. Who's responsible for tracking the effectiveness of that top of funnel? How do you know it's working? How do you know it's working? Share with me in the chat. How do you know your top of funnel is working? Right? So there has to be metrics in place, and we're going to talk about this. How are you tracking it? Right? So, and is it being tracked weekly, monthly, quarterly? Right? How do you know you're on pace? I was on a coaching call with one of my mastermind clients. We work with them one-on-one, and she had hired a social media agency to manage her LinkedIn. And I was like, awesome. How are they performing? And she's like, well, they're posting, you know, every day, and they're in the comments, and I was like, okay. And what are you measuring? What's the impact? How are you measuring the value of what you're investing in? How are you seeing your return on your investment? It should be 4x what you're investing in them. They should be bringing sales in for you, right? Are you tracking that? No, right? So how are you tracking your top of funnel, whether you're doing it or someone else is doing it? And how are you measuring that it's progressing? Okay. Okay. And then that brings me to the grow piece, right? The customer journey to conversion. Once you have them in that top of funnel, how do you convert them to that sale? I gave you a lot of different examples, but what is your sales strategy? Is it in the DMs, right? Is it by appointment only? Is it through webinar? Is it a 1-day webinar? Is it a 90-minute webinar? Is it a 5-day webinar? Is it a 9-day webinar? Are you crazy like me, right? How are you selling your products and services? Some of you are stuck there. You've got a great top of funnel, and you even have a great product or service, but your sales strategy is broken, right? Your sales strategy is broken, right? So how are you getting eyeballs to see your offer and know the value that creates your desired sales, right? And is it optimized? Is your offer, is it priced right? Have you done your market research on this? Do you know that it's priced right? If it's not selling, is it potentially priced wrong, right? Or is it a visibility issue? What is the customer's journey to purchase? Here's something we learned. We changed the company we do our checkout cart with. We moved from Thrivecart to Ontraport. And for a number of different technical reasons that we really loved, but what we found, the conversion rate to sales went down by 50%. Yeah, because it's not user friendly. People can't really find what they want, and then they're out. Right? So have you looked at your customer journey to conversion? That was a huge red flag in our post-mortem of our recent launch. Was like, what, Ro? Like, this isn't good, right? So what does the customer journey look like prior to hitting the purchase button, right? Is it optimized, right? Yeah. What's their experience once they purchase? Are you surprising and delighting them in the first 24 hours to reaffirm their investment and getting them excited about where they're headed? When the first 72 hours, customers make a decision about their purchase, it was either a waste of money, they can't believe they did it, they've got major buyer's remorse, or they feel so loved and supported and held and so glad they made the investment. Okay. You want to start off on the right foot. Okay. So many of you need to start thinking about how many eyeballs need to get on your offer to meet your conversion rate goals. I'm not going to get into the weeds of this right now. It's like a whole nother workshop. But so for instance, we know that conversion rates on ads are significantly lower than conversion rates on organic, right? So if we're going to run a campaign for a masterclass where we want to sell 100 people in, and the average conversion rate is like 1.5% for an ad and 3% for an organic, I'm just throwing some numbers out there, then you have to start reverse engineering how many actual eyeballs need to get on your content to purchase. Some of you, that's where you're just flying blind. And some of you are beating yourselves up because you think that no one wants what you have, but you actually just haven't built a large enough aggregate group to pitch to get the conversion you're looking for. Okay. So we get thousands. Some of you may be looking at my launches and being like, oh my gosh, that's wild and so unattainable. We didn't start there, but I will tell you that I started with a foundational goal of never having less than 300 people register for a masterclass ever. Because if you get below that, the conversion rates are dismal, no matter how good you are, depending on your revenue goals. And so if you're not getting at least 300 people showing up to the things you're doing virtually, don't base your judgment on your offer until you have a large enough number to get there, right? If you're not getting sales, you need to go back to the top of your funnel because you don't have enough eyeballs to convert the number that you want. Like Mandy and I know with laser precision exactly how many people we need to register to meet our revenue goals, like within a pretty decent margin. Like we can tell before the launch even starts. Oh boy, you know, like we know, right? Okay. All right. And then who's responsible for tracking that? Is it you? Are you tracking it? Right? Are you at the end of each, if you're doing live webinars, are you tracking how many showed up, how many converted? What was the conversion rate? What were the objections? Are you getting feedback from people on why they didn't pull the trigger? Right? Are we taking the feedback so we can come back and do better? Right? How are you tracking it? Right? I mean, we're getting down to like anal levels of tracking now. Like it's insane. But you don't want to fly blind, because if you don't know, then it's just an expensive hobby. It's an expensive hobby, right? Okay. So then there's scale, right? So the last piece here is, you know, your offer ladder. So when you look at your offers, you know, what are you, and it's not just offer ladder. When I say scale, it's about optimization and like in scaling, right? So it could be, scale could be, what are you offering to retain your clients? Every offer past the Lead Gen Academy was birthed based on client feedback. So some of you are like, I don't know what to offer my clients next. I don't know how to keep them on board. Ask them. You guys will be surprised. The way Build, Grow, Scale was born, our mini mastermind, we asked our clients, hey, what do you guys want more of from us? We took a survey, and out of like the top 40 things they listed, we turned around, ran a little webinar and pitched them this program called Build, Grow, Scale that had the 10 things that were on their wish list for us to teach them. And the conversion rate was insane. Everybody bought it because it was what they told us they wanted. Instead of us trying to go into a vacuum and like try to create something we would hope that our clients would want, just ask them and then sell it to them. And be humble in saying, I'm building this as I go. You are my first cohort. Like, give me feedback. What can I do better? Right? Our mastermind was born that way. What do you guys want more of? Right? Okay. So that's a little bit. And then scale can also mean back end operations, right? So last year for us, it was a CRM. We actually did a huge shift to HubSpot, which was a huge pain in the ass, wildly expensive. And I'm pretty sure it didn't do anything for us. And then we moved over to ActiveCampaign. So we made two big moves on CRMs. Now we're finding the ActiveCampaign is like, it's got a really nice data trail all the way back to the origination of where we found the potential client. And I know Mandy's loving it. The whole team is loving the data behind it, right? So scale can be systems too, right? Scale can be systems. It doesn't have to be Ascension. Okay. So then the next thing is really looking at, once you've looked at your offers, you've built your revenue goals around your offers, you know exactly how you're going to get there, right? And give yourself permission to step away and make it a puzzle piece. You might start out being wildly aggressive and being like, I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to do $1 million with my mastermind, and I'm going to do, you know, 5 million and this. And then you step back and you start running the numbers and reality hits and you're like, whoa, okay. I'm so glad I ran these numbers because this is not realistic. Right. Now I'm going to pump the brakes and kind of redesign and go back to slightly different revenue goals and slightly different numbers that are more realistic. I can have my stretch goals, right? But let me be realistic, right? Okay. So then you want to take a step back, and this is really important. I do this every year. is analyze the gaps in your knowledge to get you to the next level and gaps in support to get you to the next level, right? So up until 2 years ago, I didn't have anyone leading my sales team at all. I took a step back and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot lead the sales team anymore and be the CEO and be the face of the company and do all the coaching and be finance and right. So guess what? I delegated leading the sales team to my executive assistant. Okay. That's where it started. Right. But what I did was I was able to step back and identify, okay, someone needs to be held accountable for this. And for some of you, the growth in your company is being inhibited by your unwillingness to hire and delegate. You're the bottleneck and you're not the expert in what your business needs with those gaps. So Jackie's a great example. Like one of the reasons my business has taken off is our brains are wildly different. Wildly different. And the technical stuff that she knows on the back end, I will never know, ever. Right? There were years I paid Jackie more than I paid myself. And it's paid itself back in dividends because I saw the gaps in my company that I was never going to be an expert in. And for those of you who don't know Jackie, she's my chief integration officer. She came in as a real technical person helping me on the back end. Some of you are trying to duct tape and bootstrap a lot of this stuff that your business would take off if you would delegate it out and you'd be willing to pay out. You'd be willing to cut into your margins for a little while to be a slingshot backwards, to be a rocket ship forwards, right? So when you step back and you look at your business plan and you're like, man, for instance, my top of funnel is like dripping and I don't have the leads that I need, but I'm really busy running everything else. And I really need to hire, for instance, a media team, right? But you're not willing to invest. Well, now you're doing the manual labor of that at like your hourly rate versus hiring out someone else to do it for you, freeing you up for your moneymaker, whatever your face, your voice, and your mind cannot be replaced for. That's where you want to spend your time, right? So every year I step back and ask myself, what new players do I need, right? So for me right now, it is a full-time staff member who specializes in live events. Okay. Because when I step back from my business plan this year, as much as I love my event manager, she's fractional, she's contract. And she quoted me like 88K for the project this year. And I'm like, oh, that's somebody's like salary with the company, right? So why not go find someone who can specialize in this and bring them in a much larger full scope role in my company? So all of you are going to find gaps in your business that need hiring, right? And then the gaps in your own knowledge. What do you not know that is it is slowing you down in the growth of your company, right? What lack of knowledge or expertise, how are you leading your business? Are you leading from just your experience? And are you in a place you've never been before, right? Because what you guys will know about me, if you don't, is that I'm constantly investing in mentorship for people who are one step above me, right? So I like recently worked with the same mentor for 3 years. And finally this year, I was like, my company's gotten really big and he's amazing, but he's never done this before. And if I don't want to plateau, I need to go find someone running a $15 to $20 million a year business, right? And so some of you are plateaued because you're not willing to invest in the mentorship that's where you need to go. So your ceiling is where you are, and you're never going to think your way out of it, right? So there's identifying the knowledge gap, there's identifying the team gap, and the investments in both to take you to the next level should always be part of your business plan, okay? Okay. And then the last piece here is let's talk about the small rocks in the sand, right? The small rocks in the sand. This is where we map out your initiatives for the year. You map out your initiatives for the year, okay? And I call these the small rocks in the sand because guess what? If you put the big rocks in first, which was everything we talked about in the beginning, you can fit all the sand and all the little rocks in, right? But if you put all the little rocks in the sand in first, you wouldn't be able to get all the big rocks in, right? But the big rocks are what's most important to most of us why we got into business in the first place. Okay. So what are the little rocks in the sand? Well, let's start with the rocks. For those of you who run a business on a cadence, like for me, if you're in any of my programs, I have different coaching programs that are in different calendars throughout the week, right? Those are rocks in my calendar, right? So I have a program calendar for everything that I do. And it's lockstep like Fort Knox, very specific cadence on date and time throughout the year, okay? Same thing for your sales calendar. You know how we just talked about your top of funnel and your sales strategy, your journey to conversion for each offer likely looks different. Okay. This takes planning. So for instance, our Lead Gen Academy masterclass happens 5 times a year, right? So the marketing and the sales in my calendar kind of go like this, right? All year, my marketing calendar, right? Now, who remembers, how often do I sell my mastermind? Once. So in the calendar, the push for that, it looks like this. This is all year long. And then at the end of the year, it's like, boom, right? So the marketing for that looks very different, okay? For our Build, Grow, Scale, our mini mastermind, which is more of an organic sell, we don't do these huge pushes publicly. It's an ascension model inside of our program. It's an organic absorption where people come in and ask for business mentorship. It just it goes like this all year long, right? So you need a sales calendar and you need to align your marketing calendar to your sales calendar. Okay. Lynn's looking overwhelmed. She's like, this sounds like a lot of work, right? But this is why so many businesses fail, right? Because people don't think about this shit. And the thing is, here's what's so cool. I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed. The beauty of all of this is the internet is free. Like building a brand online, it's free, but most people don't know how to leverage it like a business. Like we're not just posting on a Whelm. We have a cadence of community. We have a cadence of our plan, right? Our live event, Burnout to All Out Live, right? We intermingle sales of those tickets in our marketing campaign outside of selling all the other shit. So we actually market our live events when we're not marketing other things, right? Because the Lead Gen Academy Masterclass takes up huge chunks of marketing throughout the year. And then we got the mastermind that takes up a chunk. And then we're sprinkling in Build, Grow, Scale. And then when we're done with all of that in the calendar, we can step back and say, okay, where's the space where we're not marketing that we can sprinkle in, come to our live event, right? Because we can sell that all year long. But if we don't remember to do it, we get like 3 months from the event and we're like, oh shit, nobody's registered for the event because we haven't been talking about it and we haven't been marketing it. By the way, right? And you can get really strategic like we have and make it a cart bump. So now we sell like 10 to 20 live event tickets with every masterclass because people add it to their cart when they join the academy, right? So how can you step back from your business plan and get strategic in how you're layering some of the things that you're selling too, right? Is this making sense? Great analogy. It's more like, I don't want to do that, not my zone of genius. Yeah. Okay. So you have your marketing calendar. I love it because we planned our Black Friday specials last year, right? Our Black Friday specials for next year are already in my marketing calendar. My team and I are going to talk about it next week. Think about that. Next week, we're talking about next November, right? How many of you guys have a Black Friday special running or a Cyber Monday special running, right? Awesome. These are the things you can plan in advance, right? You can plan them in advance. And that's part of your sales calendar and your program calendar. And you get to do it around life. How did I get to travel to Ireland, to Bali? How was I able to like literally travel 14 weeks last year? Because I put the rocks in first and all the important stuff in business filled around it, right? Okay. So, now the sand. So that was the rocks, the program calendar and the sales calendar. The sand is the administrative calendar. Okay. The sand is the administrative calendar, right? So
It's actually.
where are you going to take care of business outside of running business, right? Being in your business, right? So on Mondays, for me now, it's team calls, core team calls, contractor calls, focus group calls with coaches, live event planning. Here's my thing I've learned. I don't like switching like what I'm doing. If I'm in the zone of like being with the Burnout to All Out team or contractors, being in my CEO role, let's just do that all day long, right? Versus switching from that to coaching my clients and then back to a contractor, back to finance, right? So for me, Mondays are administrative days. Tuesdays, Thursdays, client coaching days. Wednesdays, creative days. Many of you are not blocking time for creatives, right? Whether it's your social media, it's podcast, email nurture, working on new programs, right? And you're burning yourself out, like trying to do it when it doesn't fit into your calendar on the weekends, right? So for me, I know being an online business owner, content creation is a part of my job as the CEO and the face of the company and the brand. I have to treat it like it's part of my job by blocking out in my calendar once a week creative days. And like I said in the beginning, it's actually a reprieve from all the active coaching for me, right? Some of you may enjoy creation, some of you may not. I love my troll cave days. I love sitting on this little white couch behind me with a good cup of coffee and my essential oils and writing podcast topics, writing and working on curriculum, writing what I'm going to be coaching in the community, right? And I'm in the zone and it's uninterrupted, right? And the last thing for me is making space for fire drills and miracles. Write that down. Make space for fire drills and miracles. Okay. This is why I don't take calls on Fridays. Okay. And here's why. Because if your calendar is chock full every day, you don't have time for miracles and you don't have time for fire drills. Okay. My team knows I run a rule of principle. You cannot book a call with me on Fridays. I can book a call with you, but I won't until the week of. That is my rule. If it's before the week, nothing can drive me into putting anything in the calendar on Friday. That is my rule. I cannot book anything more than a week in advance that is saved for fire drills and miracles. Okay? Because does shit hit the fan in business every now and again? Yes. We need to anticipate the fire drills and have space to breathe over them and solve them. We also need space for miracles when people ask you for something really cool and collaborate and opportunity. You need to be available to make that call. And if you're completely booked up, you're blocking the miracles in your life too. Is this making sense? Okay. So that is my own personal practice. Is I do not, my team can't book calls with me on Fridays. They're not going to hear from me on Fridays unless it's the week of and we're in a time crunch. And then I'm going to put things on the calls on Fridays. The other thing that's really nice about that and my team, because I have a team that works with me, is it's kind of a flex day. Like Fridays, because I don't book calls on Fridays, it's typically when I'm going to get my roots done. It's typically when I'm going to get my teeth cleaned or my kids' doctor's appointments. Like if I consistently keep the calendar clean on Fridays, it can be a routine, like administrative day for my health or my children's health as well. Right. And it doesn't interrupt my weekends. I'm not going to get my hair done on a Saturday. I'm spending time with my family on a Saturday. Right. Okay. You control your calendar if you take control of it now. Right. Okay. Now that you've done all of that, you want to finalize your marketing map, right? And this is where I talked earlier about your conversion plan for your marketing map. Like my team's going to see ours next week. I'm going to present it to them. Basically, let me sum up a marketing map for you. On an Excel spreadsheet, I have all the milestone dates of everything we are going to sell and when we're going to sell it, starting in January through December of next year. Every launch, like every masterclass, when the doors open to the mastermind, the live event sales, the modern entrepreneur, everything is in the calendar. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, things that we're going to do with the summit, they're all in the calendar. And then once you have those dates, you begin to reverse engineer. So for example, if let's say I have my first launch the third week in January, okay, that's my sales date. The marketing calendar is going to say, okay, if you're running this launch the third week in January, we need a 3-week runway of marketing up to that to drive traffic, eyeballs to the masterclass. And I need a 5-week runway for organic traffic, 3 for paid, 5 for organic, right? Some of you, the reasons your workshops are not converting sales is you're not giving yourself a long enough runway to market it and drive traffic into it. You're just showing up a couple days beforehand, or you're half-assing it and thinking about it 2 weeks in advance, and you're just not getting enough eyeballs, right? But if you have a strategic marketing map, you know, if this is happening on this date, 5 weeks previous, I need to start folding in my marketing, my strategies into this, right? So that's your marketing map. And then on the final day, what I like to do, because in my business planning retreat, I tend to have lots of huge pieces of paper where I've drawn. I do like my whole calendar on a huge Post-it, and each program is a different color on the map, like each month. It also helps me get a visual of how busy that month is. Okay, so what I'll do on a huge Post-it is January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, all the way down, and then color coordinate where all the LGA, where our LinkedIn launches are, right? Where my live events are with clients, where my travel is for the masterminds I'm invested in, right? And I can step back and visually see, whoa, that month is really heavy with travel and launching. Whoa, this one's kind of light. That one doesn't have anything going on. Maybe I should take this heavy month and move some things, right? So I like a big macro of like the State of the Union of what's going on, because my individual Google Calendar, it's difficult to get that big picture, right? So you can kind of ease the burden of your calendar if you can get a global view of it before you get running, right? Family, like I even have my family vacations on there because you need to be sensitive to that. I don't want to come off a 10-day trip from Iceland and go into a launch the next day, right? Physically, that wouldn't feel good, right? So you want to map that stuff out. Okay. And then you fine tune and organize when I've mapped everything. The thing I really like to do for those of you that have teams is to really be sure to bring it back to them, share with them the big vision and how they contribute to the goal, right? So like I said earlier, for me this coming year, a huge focus is reduce waste, increase efficiency, and improve profit margin. So that they're the 3 profitable pursuits that everyone in the company is going to be very clear on how their activities are either reducing waste, increasing efficiency, or contributing to the bottom line profit margin, right? And I can share with them the financial plan. Like Mandy knows to the dollar now exactly how we're going to do $5.2 million next year. And she knows exactly how we can do 6.78 if that's what we want to do. Like down to the sale, right? Down to the dollar, right? And I share with the marketing plan too. And this right now for where you are, this might be you sharing it with you, right? And that's okay. It still needs to make sense to you so you can check back in on it, right? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So that was a lot. That was a mouthful. I'm going to open it up for comments and questions here in just a second. I know, Mandy, it looks like you have a question too. So I'm going to open up for questions in just a second. The one thing I did want to put an invitation out to you guys is we do, speaking of our 2 business coaching programs, we do have our doors open right now to Build, Grow, Scale, which is our mini mastermind where we work with our clients for 6 months at a clip and help them fine tune their top of funnel strategy, fine tune their customer journey to conversion, calculating their offer strategy and exactly how they're going to convert their clients over all the way to the back end of scaling, right? To back end optimization, ascension strategies, all the things. Our clients inside of Build, Grow, Scale get coaching and mentorship by me and my leadership team. But they also get all the tools and resources and blueprints that we use back there. So the doors are open. We're going to, before we wrap up today, I'll let Mandy drop the application form in the chat for anyone who's interested in looking at that. And then also we have two left in our high level mastermind. For those of you who really are interested in taking it a whole nother level, you're listening to this and you're like, man, if I could get one-on-one coaching with Melissa and her CIO and like have her look at our business plan and I could work with them all year long in like a high level mastermind with live events and all the things. We have 2 seats left for that. We start January 1st. So again, if you're interested in either, fill out the application form. And if we feel like you're a good fit, we'll reach back out to you and would love to connect on a call. With that, I will go to Mandy first. Yes.
I just saw this as a general theme in a lot of people's questions, so I figured I'd start with it because it might help out a lot of people. They want to know, what if you're just at the beginning or in year one, or, you know, just you don't have a year to compare to, and you're just kind of level setting yourself in the beginning?
Yes. So year one, it's still a very, very important, even in year one, to set goals, to get into the practice. As a matter of fact, I would say it's one of the most important years because it's going to force you to start thinking like a business owner and start thinking about how you're pricing things, when you're going to initiate them, how you're going to launch them. Things will evolve all year long. And the business you set out for at the beginning of the year will likely look vastly different than it did at the beginning of the year. What we find with our clients we've coached in our programs is they'll come in with a particular idea and an offer. By the end of that year, it looks vastly different because they've played in the sandbox. They now know what their potential clients want. They've raised their prices. Their offer has evolved. But it's still important to build the foundation of a plan, have a revenue goal, and start mapping out your initial revenue strategies on how you're going to achieve that goal, right? So I think it's still very, very important. I see that Martha asked, in the Build, Grow, Scale, do you speak to systems? Yeah, so the system is actually build, grow, scale. So it's a 3-step process that we teach that we've actually applied in all of our programs that we sell. But we do them in very different ways. But the philosophies and method of how we go about it are all still very similar. And it's very much a rinse and repeat process. It just varies with the audience we're marketing to, how that conversion strategy works, and how that journey plays out. But the formula, the process is still the same. So great question. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to, is it Rajni?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
So I just was wondering, because I'm the first year, I didn't make as much revenue as I thought I was going to make, and I'm going to get a part-time job, possibly, you know, a few hours in there. I loved how you were talking about your schedule with your Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I definitely am like that person who's like, I never leave time to create anything, so I'm not doing anything there.
Yes.
At all. So I want to know, if somebody is, you know, working or has a part-time, you know, to supplement the business, what would you recommend?
Yeah. So I was you when I first started. I was working a corporate leadership role and growing a business around my 9 to 5. And I think that that's when we're actually the most efficient with our time, because we have to be. I was most efficient. And I'll say this too, for those that are moms, like, we're efficient as fuck with our time because we have to be, right? And so, I mean, I built my first $1 million business in the middle of COVID with less than 3 hours, 4 days a week to work on it. And I had a babysitter come over during those 3 hours, and I would put my Bluetooth headphones on, put the noise silence on, shut and lock my bedroom door because I didn't have an office at the time, and sit on my bed and work. right? So, you know, I truly believe it's not about the amount of time you have. It's about how efficient you are with the time that you have. When that babysitter would show up, and this is going to be you when you have time to work on your business, I never had to guess or even spend any time thinking about what I needed to execute on. I knew before she came over, I knew before my time block came that exactly what I needed to do when I had those moments to work, right? I think a lot of us waste a lot of time every day, like trying to figure out and prioritize what we need to do next. Like to this day, every day, I made my list at Sunday night. And I actually numbered 1 through 3 that needed to be done first. And then that list is over. Tomorrow morning, I have 1 through 3 and it needs to be done. And then, right. So like when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm not wondering what's the priority. I literally plan it the night before. So as far as time blocking goes, what you're going to need to do is make sure that you map out what are the most income producing activities to drive your business with the little time that you have. Top of funnel is going to be important, right? So how are you growing your brand? How are you moving eyeballs across your offer? Offer creation is going to be important, right? Like there's serving the clients you already have is going to be important. There's going to be some administrative pieces that are going to be really important. And so what I would encourage you to do is to look at all the activities required for you to keep your business running. Ask yourself what you can put into groups of categories and then time block in those categories. And I would say the ones that are the most revenue generating, you do first in the beginning of the week. And what I used to do when I was in your shoes, and I have an old podcast on this, I literally in my calendar, and this is when I worked a like 60-hour-a-week job. Okay. And I had 2 kids and a husband who traveled a lot. Right. So you're looking at a lot of 4 a.m. mornings and midnight times after the babies went to bed, because I knew what I was working for. Right. I know some of you are there right now. Monday through Sunday, each day I had bite-sized nibbles of work, maybe 20 to 60-minute time chunks of things that needed to be done. And this is old school. I mean, this is going to date me, but I literally had it printed out in sheets because I traveled at the time. And as I accomplished them, I'd mark them off. Same sheet printed like 100 times, just the same stack. I just grab a new one every week. And here's what would happen, especially as a leader, a director in corporate. Some weeks didn't go as planned, and like fire drills would happen in my corporate job, and I was having to hire and I was having to fire, and like a kid was sick and I was having to go to the emergency room and somebody broke their arm. And so at the end of the week, come Friday, I could see what I didn't mark off. And this is where I also had to have buy-in from my family of where I was headed. And so I would show it to my husband and say, look, like you and I have a vision of where I'm going with this and what it's going to do for us. I got behind this week and I really need you to do me a solid. And you're going to have to watch the kids for a little while on Saturday and Sunday while I go to the coffee shop and I catch up. Because if I didn't track it, then I never would have known what I kept falling short on. So when you see it visually, here's what I didn't do this week. Well, if I'm really chasing these dreams, I can't let that be my excuse. Where am I going to find it in my calendar to get it done? And if that means my husband has to hang out with the kids for 2 or 3 hours while I make this happen, I know it's for a short period of time. Or babysitter or whatever situation you're in, right? For me, it was always short game versus long game. Like you have to also make a deal with yourself that you'll only do it for so long because you don't want to get into burnout. But I'm also not going to like speak of rainbows and unicorns. You're never going to meet someone who said starting a business was super easy, and they're full of shit if they do. I've never met someone who said, you know, it was so easy. I just did it a couple times a week and it just happened. No, businesses grow out of momentum. Momentum happens from working your ass off for a little while. And then you can go to the gym in the middle of the day if you want to, once you've created that time freedom and you map your rocks and your sand and all that stuff out, because now you've earned the right to do that, right? Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Doreen, how's it going, my friend?
Oh, it's going good. Good to see you.
Good to
Um,
see you.
To Mandy's point, so if you like, there was a lot of conversation about what to do to get to your next millions, and I'm like, not even made a sale yet. So,
Mhm.
and so I was thinking that we would get help on how to map out the year so that we get, can start generating sales. And I think I've done a good job with my profile. I'm really chatting in the DMs now, and my content, and with some really nice people that I would never have gotten if it wasn't for this program. My content could do with work, but still, like, I don't know how to plan for the next year if I haven't even got any sales or anything to compare. And I mean, I can just pretend and make a aspirational goal of 250K,
Mhm.
but like, how do I measure whether I've got to do more work on my DMs or whether I've got to do more work on my content or whether I've got to
Yeah.
do and blah blah blah. I mean, I don't know if that. I think
Yeah. So you just 100% have to reverse engineer it. Like, so let's do this. If you want to make 250,000 next year, what is your what are you offering?
I'm offering a 3-month program for 3,500.
Okay. So 3-month program at 3,500.
Mhm.
Okay. And you said you want to make 250,000, and that's the one thing you want to sell next year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a good exercise for all of you guys. Like, I could do a whole nother workshop on this. I do this with our clients inside our program. So if you want to make $250,000 next year and your offer is 3,500, you need to sell 71 of those this year. If you wanted to pace yourself really nicely, divide that by 12, you just need to sell 6 per month. So if you just need to sell 6 per month, that's a little over 1.5 per week, right? So at 1.5 per week, the question is, how many viable conversations do you need to get in on a weekly basis with viable leads that 1.5 on average is going to convert to a yes, right? And so that is a number that only you are going to know playing with your market and your people. And that's when you have to start looking at, are you having enough conversations? Is your conversion strategy the right strategy? So is it just DMs, or is there another strategy in order to aggregate the group to get visible to what you're doing, or strategies for other top of funnel beyond just LinkedIn as your home base, but leveraging LinkedIn to then grow a B lane, like an email marketing or podcasting, or leveraging LinkedIn to then become a guest expert in front of other people's groups, right? So when you start doing the math, it's a sale to a sale and a half per week, right? And so then it's like, how do I move traffic in a direction that's going to get me that sale and a half per week? It's actually no different than what I've tasked Mandy with this in the new year, right? We have certain goals for ascension with our clients inside our programs. And it's, 10 students ascending into Build, Grow, Scale per month. So Mandy knows inside of our program, that's less than one person per day. It's like a person every third day, right? So all of you can actually start tracking these metrics pretty quickly, right? If you're ahead, if you're behind, if your goal is realistic at 3,500, is it realistic, Doreen, that you sell 71? Or do you want to raise your price and sell less people, right? Or do you lower your price and maybe that's why people aren't buying and you need to get some proof of concept first, right? Is that making sense?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I know I'm really bad with the sales calls. Well, I haven't had enough people booking calls to net practice sales calls.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so, you know, so I just don't know how to sort of like
Yep. So it sounds like a
build
traffic
the,
problem. If you're not booking enough calls, it's a traffic problem, right?
Mhm.
And if so you're not you don't have enough traffic. So then it's a root cause analysis of how do we drive more traffic? Is it the content? Is it the network growth? So there's things to look at for growing your network. Is it the right network? Is the network engaging? Have you looked at your metrics lately to look at who's actually following you? Who are the top 5 industries? Are they your ideal client or are they not? If they're not, if the top 5 industries following you are not your ideal client and you have a cajillion people in your network, it doesn't matter because it's falling on deaf ears, right? Does that make sense?
yes, I guess so. I'll have a juggle.
Yep. Yep. It's a lot to brainstorm. I know. Okay. I'm going to take 2 more questions and then this girl's getting ready for bed because she gets up early to go to the gym. Share.
Hey there, I'm
Hey.
happy to be here. And Doreen, just before I get into my question, I sent you the Raiders camp on how to reach them today, and I'm working on the Golden Knights for you. Okay, because those are your avatars. So I sent you how to reach out to both of them. Because if you get these bigger accounts, then you won't have to worry about doing those smaller amounts each month. So anyway, my question is that some of the stuff that you've brought up today are really great. And they're things that I can put into play immediately. I'm making baby steps or small steps and getting some traction. I just had one of the Thunderbirds female pilots reach out to me to represent her, which I thought was amazing. And some other really cool thing. I was asked to be on a podcast today. But
cool.
my thing is my business doesn't run like a lot of the stuff that you talk about. So I don't have an offer per se. I'm not selling workshops, although I'm leaning towards that in the future for another company that I'm launching, but it's going to take 6 months before that happens. So with what I do, it's a moving target. It's basically I get contacted by clients when they need services, but I'm out there trying to market to get more clients to need my services. And so I don't know how to put that into a roadmap. I can go back and look at all the shows I sold last year, recovering from recovery as well as major medical issues. And I can project how many, I have already stuff on my calendar for next year that are booked, but I don't know how to make an offer. Like I got your Black Friday and I thought, man, I wish I could afford that. I would love to extend, is there a way? But anyway, I just don't know how to get it to your terms. I mean, I would love to be making $1 million a year. And when I first started my business several years ago, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I did make, a lot of money, but, I'm not at that level again right now. So it's going to take on. So how do you address people that have a very niche as fuck business, that don't have offers and don't have that scalability like that?
Well, so remind me again what you are selling.
Well, I'm an event producer.
Yep.
I'm an entertainment producer, but I also do very personalized niche, very niche experiences when people come into Vegas. So I have international clients that come in, or mostly millionaire clients that come in, where I am with them 24/7. So I'm checking into the Win next week, for example. So very
So your offer is events. Your offer is experiences. So it's a very similar calculation and practice. It's just, and I have many clients, and like I've got clients inside of my mastermind that do, like Darla did $165,000 contract this month and multiple 25K contracts. She's not selling. Our clients inside of, that's why I say there's multiple ways to sell things, right? And the way that you convert them. You could still create a revenue goal for this year.
sure.
And
Yeah,
then,
definitely.
and then reverse engineer, well, what does that look like? It could be, and I don't know what your revenue is for being an event producer versus experience. I'm assuming probably more, you're going to make more off an event production than an experience, depending on the
I'm
size.
making 10 grand for 4 days worth of work next month, but then I won't get that kind of client to come in again for like 4 to 6 more months.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can, so the goal is, how many of those do you need per month to change that story? Because I know the event manager I work with is running multiple experiences, multiple events for lots of different people. I got a quote from her just for next year for me only for $88,000 just for me. And she's managing probably 10 or 15 different clients, experiences, and events. And so it's about building your pipeline and building your business plan around. And there's only so many clients she'll do huge events like mine, right? And then the rest of them are small experiential retreats. And so you want to build your business plan around X number of events you need a book per quarter to hit your revenue goal. And then you need to walk away from the story you're telling yourself, because you just said, I won't get another client like this for the next X number of months.
Based on my patterns. Yeah.
That's a story you're telling yourself, right?
Yeah.
So what I would say is back to our build, grow, scale model, and what we teach inside is really, you need to go back to the top of your funnel and to the bottom of the scale piece. Part of scale is referrals. Part of scale is retention, right? So for instance, the woman who came in to manage just my big event this year pitched me on also managing my small events, right? So like, what are you doing to continually build your pipeline, retain the clients you have, and strategically get referrals from other clients? Right?
No, and I appreciate that point. The clients I have that are these types of clients I've had for 15 years, all of them actually. But I have, since being in the Lead Gen Academy, started asking for referrals, and also asked a couple that were in recently, going to ask them to post on my LinkedIn their experience of working with me. So I think it's just getting the traction and figuring out what my offer is, because there's so many event planners, but I'm very, very niche. I used to do 50 events per month when I worked for the MGM properties. So I was juggling a lot, but I had a huge team around me. It's just me.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. All right. I'm going to take one more with Sharon, and then we will wrap up.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I do not envy you at all. I actually I have an event producer for my event that I'm planning. But I want to say, first of all, this was amazing. This was a nice refresher, because I put it in the notes, episode 108. That was game changer for me, where I stepped back on the prioritized the joy of what I'm doing, but I still am getting the burnout because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I stepped into a whole lot in the midst of dealing with my husband going through stage 3 lung cancer. And I think I talked about that on a different call a while ago, which he's in remission. But yeah, long story short, we're still dealing with stuff. But all of that to say, it doesn't always come back on. I'm still wrapping my head around everything, because I enjoy what I do. I am hitting burnout, because I am, from the time I open my eyes to past you're going to bed, I'm not. I'm still working every single day. I will work on Thanksgiving. I'm gonna cook, and then I'm gonna work on Wednesday. I'm working on Friday, because I've got to lay out a magazine that I'm working on. So it's like when I hear everything you say, and I've got notes on top of your book, on top of this, on top of the podcast, and the podcast you've already talked about a lot of this stuff, and the backing the numbers. I've seen it all. I'm stuck on. I say all that to say, I'm stuck on that whole list thing, because it's like I start lists and then I get lost, because and you were talking about you pick the 1, 2, 3, and then you pick the 1, 2, 3, and I was trying to write it down. I'm like, shit, I just lost everything, because I'm trying to understand. I get analysis paralysis with all the damn lists. I've thrown away so many notebooks and started from scratch, because I had 15 notebooks with to-do lists. So that's the part where I'm really struggling with managing, I think, to get my head wrapped around everything that I have going.
Okay. Yes. Okay. 2 pieces of advice. And that is, number one, not that you need another thing to do, but the book, The One Thing, if you have not read it, is so good.
I own it.
Okay.
I haven't read
and
it.
So I actually practice by that, just like you guys, if you could see under the hood of everything that's going on in my business and my life, like I'm hosting 45 people in my house on Thursday. Yeah. And we just wrapped up our launch, and I'm business planning and building KPIs for my team. And like, I have clients flying in next week, and I have a live event next week on top of having 45 people at my house this week. My team's flying in. We're doing business strategy the day before those guys come in. Oh, and my son's birthday is this weekend too, right? So like, I am no different than you guys, right? So what I do to stay sane though, maybe is or isn't different than some of you, is that every Sunday I brain dump. Every Sunday, every Sunday I write a list of the most important things for the whole week. The whole week must be done before the week is over. Okay. And then I go back to the one thing. So before I went to bed on Sunday night, I looked at this list and I thought baseline, like I've got to create baseline metrics for Modern Entrepreneur, baseline metrics for Lead Gen Academy. I need to finalize the contract for Brooke. I need to finalize the team KPIs. I got to prepare for my team meeting. I've got to prepare for my live team meeting next week. I've got to prepare for my Modern Entrepreneur planning with Sam. I've got to finalize the E360 onboarding details for their coming in this next year. I've got to prepare for the vision casting call that we had earlier today. I've got to prepare for the business retreat thing that we're doing right now. I've got to write my end of year newsletter. I have to book a new finance call with my CFO to make sure she knows the numbers. I need to review the workbook flow for, I'm just sharing with you guys my real life, right? I need to work through the workbook flow for launch next year. I need to get some, decide what I want to give the team for the holidays. They're going to be here next week. Fuck. Right? Like the list goes, I've got to book a call with Anna this afternoon and talk about the contract and add, I don't even know what the last one is, but I marked it off and it's done. So whatever that is. So my list, I promise, is no different than yours, but maybe the difference is last night I looked at this whole list and I looked at my calendar and there's two things I have to address. One, what is most urgent and pressing that has to be done on Monday because it's due on Monday, one of which was prepare for this, right? But the other thing I ask myself is what is the one thing that if I do this today, by process of doing it, it will make everything else easier, right? And so what I did with this list last night, you can't really see it, but I assigned numbers 1, 2, 3, right? So when I got up this morning, I went straight to 1 and then straight to 2. And then straight to 3. And then I went to the gym and I worked out, took a shower, got myself ready. And then I'm like, all right, I've got a little bit more time before my next call. What are my next 1, 2, 3s? Prioritize those. Go to my 1, go to my 2. And then before I go to bed tonight, I'm like, damn, I did a really good job. I knocked out way more than I thought I was going to because some of my calls ended early today and I was able to chip away at it. And now before I go to bed, I'm like, all right, what are my next 1, 2, 3s? So I actually work by weeks of to-dos, right? And then prioritize the top 3 each day, bite-sized nibbles. And if I accomplish that, I'll attack another one. I think most of us have unrealistic goals on how many things we can get done in one day on a to-do list versus giving yourself 3, right? And then if you get through those, move to the next ones, right? So I don't know if that helps, but that's just how I operate.
Do you add on if something jumps off?
Yeah, that definitely happened today. I think that's what I don't know what this is. Add perf card to call. Oh, it was add performance. That little card I showed you guys this morning, Mandy, that showed you guys everything in one little rubric for performance and compensation and all that. Yeah, I add things, but they have to ultimately be assigned a number. They're either a 1, 2, or 3, or I'm not doing them today. They're just on the back burner before the week is up. And guess what? Y'all are gonna love this. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. If you don't take calls on Fridays, that's where this list gets finished every week. This is my high performing habit for you. Is this doesn't stress me out because maybe not this week because it's Thanksgiving, but Fridays is when I catch up. And Fridays is also when I get back to my email. Like some of my team knows, like a lot of their emails don't get responses till Friday because that's their urgent needs, not mine. Right? So I table a lot of stuff that's not on this list as a 1, 2, 3 until Friday. Right? And then I can respond. And this list is done every Friday. Like it's done, but it's because I'm not booked till 5 o'clock on Friday. Right?
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
All I have.
All right, guys. Well, I hope this was super helpful. Like I said, if you are looking to take your business mentorship to the next level, if you're recognizing, hey, maybe I'm at my lid, maybe the reason I'm stagnating right now is because I need some business mentorship, I need some accountability, I need a path. We'd love for you to apply and take a look at our Build, Grow, Scale mini mastermind, or even our most highest level mastermind. We've got 2 spots left if you're looking for high touch one-on-one and experiential retreats and group coaching. I think Mandy can drop the application in the chat one more time. We'd be happy to chat with you guys over the next week or two. Regardless, I hope you found this really beneficial, and I hope that you're all committing to your business plan in 2025. And let me know in the DMs, like reach out to me, let me know what you come up with. I hope this has been helpful. Remember to prioritize joy. Remember the big rocks. Put the big rocks in first, and you will thank yourself. Last thing I will say that wasn't here, but maybe it's in your workbook. When you plan your calendar this year for next year, go ahead. If you're kicking yourself that you didn't create space to work on your business plan this year and you're just so behind, go ahead and block it in your calendar next year. November of next year, I already have 4 days blocked business planning. Okay. I even have my team's mid-year and quarterly and end of year reviews in the calendar. Like, go ahead and put it in there, right? All right, guys, have a wonderful evening. And for those of you inside of our programs, we'll see you on the other side. It was great to see you all. Happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
So, it's your husband. You should call him. You want me to call him? I mean, what's his name? What's your name?